Hello and welcome back to another episode of Advanced RC Adventures. This is a channel where we investigate, explore, build and explain, upgrade, and advance Nitro RCs to another level. Come start a new adventure with me. Today we do have a great adventure planned for 10 scale touring car lovers, aficionados. This is one of the most iconic race cars of the early 2000s. This particular car is the HPI Hara Edition R40. The first R40 was released in the late 2003, and it was just after Hara had won 2003 Roar Nationals, and then the next year in 2004 he was a repeat Roar National champion in the R40. At the time, this car was, if not the one of the most adjustable 10 scale touring cars. Even the wheelbase itself was able to be adjusted. Designed to have the heaviest parts down low on the chassis for a low center of gravity. The tires for the chassis and the car was designed for a 26 front and a 30 rear. This is an actual HPI 30 millimeter wide tire, and they came in a number of different shore levels. So just to have a little example here, this is a 26 millimeter front. This is a BSR. There's not a big difference in size between these two. This is 26 and a 30. These are what size tire that the R40 was designed for. I've ran 26 on front and rear, and also combinations of 26 and 30, 32, and the giant 45 rear. Here is a BSR 45 millimeter wide tire. Let's take a look between the 26 and the 45. There's a stark difference between the two. So, and what I found out though is there's a clear reason why it was designed for a 26 and 30. So again, here's the 26 and the 30. The 26 goes on the front, the 30 goes on the rear in the back. And the geometry for the rear setup works best for that 30 and 32. What can happen is that the tire itself, this 45, can start to rock on its edges when it's going around corners, and you're effectively losing that surface grip. So with a 30 and a 32, there's a lot less width, and so it's able to keep that surface area of the tire a lot better. My particular R40 came to me about, it could be close to 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago. This was a Shelf Queen build. It's now been ran by me, so it's effectively brand new. But I ended up having to take apart the entire car, top to bottom, make sure that everything was built and put together properly, and I found a lot of items that needed to be addressed. This is the Hara Edition. This came out 2005-ish, about a year or so after he had won the 2004 Roar Nationals. And there's a number of different upgrades from the original R40 to the Hara Edition. The shock towers themselves, these are carbon fiber. These have been updated. There's the rear tower, that's been updated. The 2-speed transmission has a lightweight version now. These particular gears I run is a mod 0.8, and the setup that's on here right now for first gear is a 22 pinion and a 58 spur, and second gear is a 29 pinion and a 52 spur. This is the tallest gearing that HPI offered for the R40 in that mod 0.8 configuration. The only thing bigger was There's a mod 1 configuration. It's just a slightly bit taller. Later on in the spring and the summer, we're going to take this car out and we are going to do some formal speed runs, which I have not been able to do. I've just ran it around on my street, but we're going to take it to that speed run location. This is an OS TZ T5, and it is different than the standard TZ. The standard TZ is a 3-port. This particular one is a 5-port. It has somewhere between 7 and 8% more power and another 1,000 RPM. It's got a ZAC Project cooling head, black on black block. And we have the Dynamite 6610. And this is effectively an outlaw pipe. It's a 2-chamber pipe and header combo. This is modeled after the Hypex 2669 pipe, but it is an outlaw pipe and has a 6mm stinger inside. This is one of the loudest combinations, engine and pipe, that I have ever heard off of a small block engine setup. The fuel tank on the Hara edition has been redesigned to allow for more fuel flow to sit back into the bottom of the tank so that it can get every drop into the engine while going around the track. The upper deck design is carbon fiber again, but it is different. It relocates the battery as well as the receiver. The intermediate shafts from the belt system are lightweight compared to the original design. The front diff originally came with the Hara with a one-way. It doesn't spin in one direction and it spins in the other. And this is great for a lot of very sticky, wide open, sweeping turn track setups. But for on the street, you really want a traditional bevel diff. And these have the upgraded 4-gear bevel diffs, front and rear. And so I swapped this out to one of those bevel diff, open diff style, and it works amazing. What can happen with the front one-way is when you brake, the back end wants to come around to the front and you spin out. So with the standard open diffs front and rear, you have a lot more control, especially on low traction surfaces. We have threaded shocks on the front and the back, and that's something of an upgrade compared to the original R40. You of course can put threaded shocks on the original R40, but with the Hara edition, they came as part of the kit. We have 32.5-pound front springs that I'm running, and I have 26-pound rear springs. We have a medium sway bar setup here in the back. And also for the shocks, Hara edition comes with these lower shock plates. It allows for a little bit more adjustment for those shocks going on to the control arm itself. The lower chassis has a different design as well. Notice all the openings, and it is silver. The original one was purple and did not have the same amount of openings. The upper chassis design, the change, like I mentioned, it relocates the battery to the side. It pushes the receiver to the opposite side, and the servo is relocated as well. And that's to try to relocate some of the weight of those components, making them more centralized and a little bit lower to the ground to keep our CG down below, to have a little bit more control on the steering. This car, just like a lot of other race cars, have so many different adjustments for the control arms, the pillow ball adjustments. These have adjustable diffs that you can put in different fluid weights, so you can tune your diffs in that regard. You can change the wheelbase of the rear control arms. That beautiful 2-speed transmission. That's the mod 0.8 version. There's so many great things to look at. It's a shelf queen by itself, but when you get it on the road, they're so enjoyable to drive. This Hara edition, like I mentioned, it came around the 2005 mark, and it was just after the 18SS models came out for the 10 scale RS4 3 18SS model, as well as the MT2 18SS model. And again, around the 2005 mark is around when Hot Bodies had merged with HPI. Another Hara edition car that came around a similar time frame is the Hara Pro 4. The Pro 4 is an electric 10 scale touring car, but this is the Hara edition that came out a number of years later, around the same time that the Pro 4 did. And this is the shaft driven electric Pro 4 that I did some club racing for a number of years. It's got now a vintage Novak SS 4300 brushless system with an LRP competition. It's a great car, and electric is one of those, especially touring car racing, is a great way to hone in on your driving and racing skills. And then you can take all of that experience to the next extreme and put it into your Nitro. You have all the same kind of racing characteristics, but now you're able to use a real engine with fuel and do the same type of suspension tuning and now engine tuning itself. The battery that I have here is a AAA style 5-cell 6-volt humpback, and these are made by VP Racing batteries, not to be confused with the VP Fuel. It's a different company. We have 2 ProTech servos in here. For the throttle and brake, we've got a 100 SS, and down below, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this is a 130 SS style digital servo from ProTech. The R40 is a car that when it first came out was always on the wish list, and I was never able to get it. And now later on in years in the hobby, I was able to finally acquire one, and it's a fantastic car. You could be able to take one of these and it would still be competitive with the current Infinities, Serpents, etc. cars out there on the track. On our community page for the channel, reached out to you guys with a couple different selections, and this is the car that you guys had selected that you wanted to see next. Being how iconic that it is, I wanted to keep it relatively stock, even though the Hara edition has so many different upgrades compared to the original R40. It's a great driving car, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with you here today. The adventures with the R40 are just now starting now that we've been able to do an overview. There's a number of different upgrades that you have been able to get over the years. A lot of purple HPI goodies for the original and the Hara edition. This does not have a lot of those goodies on purpose. Again, I wanted to keep it kind of in that stock form, and I wanted to keep the kind of black on black with a little bit of purple accent kind of theme for the build. There's so many beautiful builds that all of you have out there for the R40 with a lot of the purple anodized aluminum goodies, and your cars are beautiful in their own right. This is how I wanted to represent my R40 and my love for the car, and there's no wrong way for sure on how to represent one of the most iconic 10 scale racing touring cars, not just of the early 2000s, but today. If you have one of these cars, you understand the greatness of it, and if it's something that's on your bucket list, find one, drive it. You'll enjoy it and smile the entire way. Again, I appreciate you taking all these adventures with me. If you enjoy these types of 10 scale Nitro touring car overviews, then feel free to like, share, and subscribe. If you like 10 scale, Nitro, and especially touring cars, then this is the place to be, and thanks for taking the adventure with me. Separation.